Bonsoir tout le monde. Je suis content d'être à Halifax. Laissez-moi juste dire à quel point, évidemment, nous sommes soulagés que le pays n'encourira pas le fruit d'une grève ou d'un arrêt de travail dans nos deux chemins de fer. We took a decision that we believe was in the public interest and in workers' interest. The public interest, how? When you think of chlorine supplies for municipalities, propane going to hospitals, commuters in our three largest cities who rely on the services that railway workers provide. In the national interest, when you think of $1 billion a day of economic losses and virtually every sector of the economy affected. So we're obviously very relieved. Let me also, though, pay tribute to the 9,000 and some railway workers in the country, ceux qui travaillent jour et nuit afin de faire rouler notre économie. Nous honorons leur travail et nous respectons évidemment le travail très, très ardu qu'ils font. We are, of course, looking forward to a great cabinet retreat here where we will be talking a lot about Canada's economic recovery. Inflation's coming down. Interest rates seem to be coming down, and we're obviously very, very confident and optimistic about the Canadian economy going forward. This would have been an act of economic self-sabotage, which is what the Deputy Prime Minister called it, and obviously we're very relieved that that has been avoided.
Dans la presse canadienne, le gouvernement devrait-il empêcher les conflits de travail dans l'industrie ferroviaire dans l'avenir en décrétant que c'est un service essentiel?
Il n'y a pas de concept de service essentiel dans la loi fédérale. Nous avons, moi je pense que le ministre du Travail et le gouvernement est muni d'outils. Dans le conflit dont on parle de 10 mois de négociations, dont plusieurs avec le service fédéral de médiation, un des meilleurs au monde entier. Et on était rendu dans une impasse dite fondamentale. Et donc, c'était la responsabilité du gouvernement du Canada d'agir pour justement prévenir un carnage économique lorsque nous vivons évidemment une reprise économique et que les opportunités de croissance sont très, très présentes partout au pays.
Bonjour, Mylène Crête de la presse. Pour être bien certain de comprendre votre réponse, est-ce qu'il y a lieu d'ajouter le transport ferroviaire comme service essentiel, d'ajouter une disposition pour en faire un service essentiel dans la loi?
Nous croyons aux négociations collectives. C'est pour ça qu'on a donné quelques 10 mois aux partis. Et je pense que la très grande majorité de ces négociations-là aboutissent en un contrat de travail. Je pense que le gouvernement est déjà muni des outils nécessaires pour éviter les conflits et pour faire en sorte que, justement, les travailleurs puissent avoir des gains côté santé et sécurité au travail et aussi gains côté monétaire. Donc, je pense que le système actuel fonctionne, mais nous étions confrontés à un double arrêt de travail de nos chemins de fer et évidemment, le gouvernement a dû agir dans l'intérêt public.
Hi, Minister. JP Tasker, CBC News. Paul Boucher, the head of the Teamsters Union, says that he's coming here to Halifax and he's urging Teamsters members in the area to show up here at the convention center to protest your move to send this to binding arbitration. Are you concerned about that protest? Are you worried that it would disrupt these proceedings? And what's your message to the labor movement that's frustrated with what you've done?
Well, I met Mr. Boucher, of course, in the days preceding the deadline date last week. I also met him outside the hotel today. Of course, we understand that until there's a contract signed, that the Teamsters will be fighting for what they believe they deserve. And binding arbitration is a good way to get what they deserve. I want to say again how much I honor and respect the very hard work. It's a hard job being running trade on one of our national railways, and the contributions of those people are inestimable to our economy. But we were confronted with exceptional circumstances where we made a decision that was in the interest of Canadian workers. In fact, it's hard to remember a decision that was made more in the interest of Canadian workers. When you think of shutdowns in potash mines, when you think of car plants running out of inventory, when you think of forestry and aluminum operations all over the country, not having the storage required, needing to ship that product, I would remind you that about a third of what goes on rail beds in Canada gets exported to the United States. Those are major economic consequences, and they're also major consequences in terms of salaries for unionized workers across the country. So we made what we think was a decision in the interest of workers and many unionized workers across the country.
Fanny Olivier, Radio-Canada. Monsieur MacKinnon, juste pour revenir au sujet de cette retraite du cabinet aujourd'hui et dans les prochains jours, on a entendu dans les rangs libéraux certaines personnes dire, bon, il faut du changement, il faut vraiment donner un coup de barre, il reste seulement 1 an avant les prochaines élections. Est-ce que vous pensez que vous devez maintenant vous mettre vraiment sur la stratégie, être plus agressif ou au contraire, vous êtes plutôt un adepte du statu quo dans votre stratégie politique actuelle?
Moi, je pense qu'il y a lieu d'être très, très optimiste. Évidemment, nous avons passé l'été à écouter nos commettants, à traverser le pays et parler de ce que nous avons fait. Nous sommes, je pense, rafraîchis et avons hâte d'entamer le travail qui aura lieu à l'automne derrière le premier ministre et faire en sorte qu'on peut profiter justement de l'élan économique que semble se dessiner ici au Canada, de profiter du fruit de tout le travail qui a été mis en place, sans parler de comment les gens voient les programmes que nous avons mis en place. Il s'agit de parler aux familles qui profitent des garderies. Il s'agit de parler aux aînés qui profitent des soins dentaires. Donc, je pense que les gens commencent à faire le bilan de nos accomplissements et commencent à constater que le gouvernement a fait un bon travail, un travail qui doit se poursuivre, mais un travail, je pense, qui semble satisfaire à bien des gens. The cabinet and obviously very soon the caucus will gather after a very refreshing summer of meeting constituents across the country. And I know that we're talking to a lot of constituents who appreciate a lot of the things that have been put in place, childcare, dental care for seniors. But we also want to make sure that we continue this economic optimism that we're starting to feel in the country, with inflation coming down, with interest rates coming down, and a lot of expansion and investment going on in the country that should give every region of this country a lot of optimism and a lot of things to think about as we go into what's obviously going to be a very highly charged political year. But we stand foursquare behind the Prime Minister and look forward to, I know, presenting Canadians with the kind of contrast that they're going to be looking for next year.
Last question.
Hi, Minister. Kate McKenna from CBC. You say you had to intervene in this labor dispute because of the economic effects, but it's become clear that this is a duopoly, that there are really 2 companies that control this very important sector. Does the lack of competition concern you from a labor perspective?
Well, there has been extensive consolidation continent-wide in the railway sector. And there's no question that in a country as large as ours, geographically, that requires miles of track and millions of dollars of investment. But it also requires the sweat on the brow of a lot of very, very hardworking Canadians, and we want to honor that work. We also want to make sure the railways continue to get better, continue to help us deliver the goods and grow our economy. So I'm the Minister of Labour. I'm not here to talk about industry structure. We are obviously heavily reliant on that infrastructure and heavily reliant on investments and better service from our railways, and that's what we're going to continue to look for.
Chance in your mind that there could still be another work stoppage in the coming days, or do you believe the railroad workers are back at work tomorrow and will be for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, we expect that railway workers and the railways themselves will restart operations. In fact, my information is that that process is significantly underway.
Did you get any message at all from the U.S. government in terms of its concerns around the economic issues involving that kind of cross-continental
Well, let's not pretend that the U.S. government doesn't also face the same kinds of circumstances. Look, we've had over a decade of low inflation, low interest rates, and workers in Canada and in the United States are looking for raises. And if we want to have a high-wage economy, and we very much do want to have a high-wage economy, we are going to have tensions at bargaining tables across all sectors. That is also true in the United States. So my discussions with my American counterpart and others in the U.S. was really more about comparing notes on, confronting the very phenomenon that I just described.
No pressure to get them back to work.
Well, they understand very well, of course, that we have substantially the same system of collective bargaining that they do, and we honor the rights of unions in that process. And we were comparing notes. Of course, we are tied literally and spiritually to our Mexican and to our American friends when it comes to commerce. And that is a reality. That is a daily reality. That's how a lot of Canadians earn their paychecks. So, of course, we're going to be coordinating and comparing notes and trading lessons on how to deal with these things.
Yes,
I didn't say pressure. I said,
asking, so you're saying yes?
no, I'm saying that we were comparing notes.
But they were calling you, right?
Well, of course, and I call them too when we think that there may be bottlenecks or issues on their side. Again, let's not pretend that the U.S. and Mexico, for that matter, don't have labor conflicts and issues that they need solving, and logistical issues, supply chain issues that we all need to work on. Me, my counterparts in the U.S., my colleagues in cabinet in their various sectors. So it's a very collaborative, cooperative, and supportive relationship, and it's one that I'm glad I was able to rely on.
Thank you, everyone.
Merci.
Everybody, and thanks for taking a few minutes here. It's great to be here in Halifax, Canada, and really to have the opportunity to sit with the Prime Minister and the Canadian Cabinet to talk about our bilateral relationship, to talk about current events in the world, and also to talk about the immense changes taking place underneath our feet on technology, on the clean energy transition, on geopolitics, and on things that matter to ordinary citizens in both the United States and Canada. The U.S. and Canada are neighbors. That's true in a geographic sense, obviously, but it's also true in a much deeper sense. We share common bonds of history. We share common values, standing up for democracy and human rights, standing up to tyrants and dictators and would-be aggressors. We share a common vision for what the world should look like and can look like if like-minded countries work together for peace, stability, and progress. And all of that will be part of the conversation that we have. And I just want to take a moment especially to say thank you to the Prime Minister, who has been a tremendous partner to President Biden. And he and his team have been a tremendous partner to the entire U.S. national security team and the entire Biden cabinet. We've had the opportunity to work through crises and to work on huge opportunities to set an agenda for the future that really we believe will put both of our countries in a better position to compete and succeed in this century. So it's an exciting opportunity for me to take off a tie, to sit with so many friends, so many people who share common purpose, and to have the chance with the Prime Minister's leadership to have a conversation that I think can benefit both of our countries. And with that, I'd be happy to take a few questions.
Hi, Brian Platt with Bloomberg News. I just wanted to start with an international question. Did the U.S. have advanced knowledge of Israel's preemptive strikes last night? And do you view Israel's actions as helpful towards averting a broader conflict, or do you think it may add to the risk of one?
We have been concerned about the conflict escalating into an all-out regional war since October 7th, and we have worked round the clock with partners and allies, moving military assets, engaging in intensive diplomacy, both publicly and privately behind the scenes, to avert that outcome. We continue to work to avert that outcome. And our hope is that the events of last night do not spill out into an escalation that leads to regional war. To your specific question, all I can tell you is that we have remained in continuous contact with our Israeli counterparts at all levels. and they have shared with us how they see the situation. We've shared with them how we see it, and we tried to coordinate as closely as possible. I can't speak directly to the conversations that unfolded yesterday, other than to say there was continuous communication, and we have been tracking the threat of Hezbollah attacks against Israel for some time now. And of course, those attacks have been unfolding since October 7th, in addition to the specific operations and actions that took place yesterday. What I believe now is that it is incumbent on all parties in the region to work towards de-escalation and stability. And so we are feverishly working in Cairo as we speak with our team and the teams of the other mediators, as well as with the Israelis, to get to a ceasefire and hostage deal along the framework that President Biden laid out, to get calm between Israel and along that border between Israel and Lebanon, and ultimately to get to a broader circumstance of regional stability. And of course, we think that a part of that is a credible path to a two-state solution for the Palestinian people as well.
Hi, Mr. Sullivan. Ashley Burke, CBC News. Why did you decide to make a stop here to talk to the Prime Minister and Cabinet? Is there a specific ask of the Canadian government that you're going to be making?
I didn't come here with a specific ask. I came here because it's all too rare that we get the chance to have step-back strategic conversations at critical moments, and we are in such a critical moment. And that's true when it comes to the Middle East. It's true when it comes to the war, Russia's brutal war of aggression against Ukraine. It's true with respect to managing the challenge posed by China with respect to the global economy, and how the U.S.-China relationship and the relationship between China and other advanced democracies plays out. But we're also going to talk about broader themes too, about climate and the clean energy transition, about artificial intelligence. Being on the same page between the U.S. and Canada, particularly as we enter a year where Canada will be chairing the G7, is vital for U.S. national security, for our priorities, and we believe it's vital for the broader free world as well. So this isn't about me coming up here for a particular specific ask or on a single issue. It's a mark of the seriousness with which we take staying on the same page with our Canadian counterparts at all levels. And for me to have this opportunity really, I think, genuinely is going to create good momentum as we head into a critical few months ahead.
Hello, I'm Tonda McCharles with the Toronto Star. 3 months after the U.S. imposed hiked tariffs on Chinese EV imports, Canada still has yet to act, has not yet revealed its plan. And I'm wondering what your message is to the Canadian government vis-a-vis your national security concerns around this vital industry. And are they mainly economic, or are they centered on the software in these vehicles? Or can you elaborate, as you head to China yourself tomorrow, what your message to Canada is, and should the two countries be presenting a united front?
Canada ultimately will determine its own trade policy, and that's for the Prime Minister and the government to make determinations on. It's not for the U.S. to try to dictate. Of course, we will talk behind closed doors about our experience and what we see. And what we see is really two distinct challenges. One to do with overcapacity, which we have talked about quite openly, the view that massive subsidies going into the Chinese electric vehicle industry have eliminated a level playing field. And so part of the economic response the U.S. has taken is responding to that. And then there are issues associated with data security, with critical infrastructure, and with the underlying questions of national security associated with connected vehicles, electric vehicles. And so that has also motivated steps that we have taken on policy grounds through presidential action. So I'll be talking about all of that with my Chinese counterparts when I see them in Beijing. We'll discuss this here as well. And I will also point out, standing here before you, that the European Union has taken action on this front, and the G7 has spoken broadly about this set of issues, about overcapacity and about the national security challenges associated with certain kinds of supply chain issues and trade issues. And Canada will make its own determinations, but the U.S. does believe that a united front, a coordinated approach on these issues benefits all of us.
Hi, Mr. Sullivan. JP Tasker from CBC News. At the last NATO summit, the Prime Minister announced that Canada would reach the 2% of GDP spending target in 2032, so 8 years away from now, much longer runway than a lot of our allies in that alliance. Is the U.S. satisfied with that delayed timeline to get to that 2% target? Would you like to see them spend more sooner?
For every country, we will always be in favor of getting to 2% as rapidly as humanly possible. And we're quite proud of the fact that when President Biden took office, 9 countries in the NATO alliance had hit the 2% of GDP defense spending target. At the NATO summit in Washington last month, the president was able to announce that 23 allies have now hit the 2% mark. That is an enormous leap forward over the course of 3 years. There is still a set of countries that hasn't. Canada is one of them. We welcome what Canada laid out in terms of its 2% target, which is a historic step for Canada to take. And then, of course, with all countries, we'd like to see that 2% target get hit as soon as is humanly possible.
Hi, Mr. Sullivan. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. Last year, Prime Minister Trudeau alleged that agents of the Indian government were involved in the murder of Canadian Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Has the U.S. provided any additional evidence to the Indians about this, and has the U.S. participated in the Indian investigation at all?
The U.S. and Canada have cooperated at every level, law enforcement, intelligence, and diplomatic, and we will continue to do so because, of course, as you know, and as we have said publicly and briefed Congress on, we had an attempted assassination in the United States as well. It was a tragedy what happened in Canada. I know there are ongoing law enforcement proceedings, investigations, and so I'll be careful in exactly how much I say, but I can say that we have good cooperation and coordination on these issues, and we take a very firm line on the question of attempted or actualized assassinations of individuals in our 2 countries, and it is our joint commitment, along with other allies, to stand firmly against that.
Hello, Mr. Sullivan. Michel Sabat, La Presse Canadienne. Should Canada adjust its message in any way regarding the situation in the Middle East, or are you satisfied with the current message?
Every country is going to approach this terribly difficult situation with its own perspective, its own balancing of the various considerations at play, and Canada obviously is doing that. One thing I will tell you is that we've had a chance since October 7th to engage. The President and the Prime Minister have spoken on this conflict several times themselves. I have spoken to my counterpart, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, the Director of our intelligence services. So we feel that our coordination and transparency on this issue is very strong. Obviously, the choices that we make on policy or the particular posture we take on particular events may be different, but I think we share a fundamentally common objective, which is to get to peace and security in the Middle East, security for Israel as a democratic Jewish state, and a path forward for the Palestinian people so that they can live in freedom and dignity, and that Israel comes to broader peace and normalization with all of its Arab neighbors. So that shared strategic objective remains common and sound. And then, we'll continue to talk through specifics and tactics on the route to get to that ultimate destination. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it.